Today on Rappler, for the first time ever, the Philippines gets an investment grade rating. Officials say the U.S. ship that crashed into the Tubataha Reef will be out as early as April 1. And North Korea cuts its military hotline to South Korea. Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Rappler, your social news network. The Philippines wins its first ever investment-grade debt rating from global credit rating firm Fitch. Fitch upgrades the country's credit rating to BBB- from BB+. It marks the first time the Philippines joins the list of A-lister countries considered safe for investments. An investment grade means the Philippines as a borrowing country can pay its debt. This lowers its borrowing costs and generates savings, which can then be spent on social services. In a statement Wednesday, Fitch adds a stable outlook and cites a robust economy and improved fiscal management. Fitch says the Philippine economy has been resilient, expanding 6.6% in 2012 amid a weak global economic backdrop. The agency also cites improvements in fiscal management during the administration of former President Gloria Arroyo. Presidential spokesperson Edwin Lacerda says the upgraded status does not only mean lower interest rates on the country's debt.
This is an institutional affirmation of our good governance agenda. Sound fiscal management and integrity-based leadership has led to a resurgent economy in the face of uncertainties in the global arena. Truly, what was known as a perennial laggard of Asia is taking off and is accelerating towards its goal of an equitably progressive society.
Lacerda also says the passing of the VAT reform law was the Arroyo administration's only contribution to the upgraded rating. Other international credit ratings firms, Standard & Poor's and Moody's Investor Service, still rate the country one notch below investment grade. A relative of Sulu Sultan Jamalul Kiram III is allegedly killed by Malaysian authorities in Sabah. Princess Jalal Kiram says the Sultan's uncle, Ustaz Jamjam Sali, was accosted and killed in Lahad Datu on Sunday. Kiram says Raja Muda Agbimuddin Kiram called us yesterday afternoon to inform us about the incident. It's unclear how Sali was killed or if he was armed during the incident. Sulu Sultan spokesperson Abraham Ijirani also confirms the news, adding in Filipino, they should leave the Sultan's relatives who didn't join the Sulu Sultanate Royal Army. Ijirani quotes Agbimuddin saying Malaysian authorities arrested at least 20 of the Sultan's relatives. He adds they will form a legal team of volunteer lawyers to help Filipino detainees in Sabah. The minesweeper that crashed into the Tubataha Reef may be removed as early as April 1 after the crew begins dismantling the hull Tuesday. In a statement, the U.S. Pacific Fleet says salvage personnel started cutting the hull of the USS Guardian after the bow section was successfully lifted and transferred to a barge. Salvage Operations Officer in Charge Captain Mark Matthews says preparing the ship for this sectioning has been extremely challenging. Park Superintendent Angelique Songko and Greg Yan from the World Wildlife Fund say this means the vessel may be gone from the reef as early as April 1. Yan says the Tubataha Management Office is forming a team of experts who will conduct coral damage assessment as soon as the ship is pulled out. The U.S. Pacific Fleet says no fuel leaked since the USS Guardian ran aground on January 17. The U.S. Supreme Court treads cautiously as it considers same-sex marriage, with justices appearing hesitant to deliver a historic verdict on the issue. The Supreme Court will take months to issue a ruling, but several justices indicate they will be in no hurry to reach a verdict that could extend the right to same-sex marriage to the entire country. Justice Anthony Kennedy expresses his reluctance for the court to step into, quote, uncharted waters on a case involving California law. Kennedy says, we have 5 years of information to weigh against 2,000 years of history or more. But he also expresses sympathy for an estimated 40,000 children living in California with same-sex couples. He says they want their parents to have full recognition and full status. Kennedy's remarks are closely watched as he's often the swing vote on the 9-member bench. Justice Samuel Alito, a conservative, also speaks of, quote, a lack of data on same-sex marriage since it was first legalized in the Netherlands in 2001. Liberal justices argue it's discriminatory to define marriage solely by whether a couple can bear children. North Korea announces plans for a top leadership meeting at the height of tense relations with South Korea. The Korean Central News Agency says the North's top leaders will meet sometime in the next few days to discuss an unspecified, quote, important issue. News of the meeting comes a day after North Korea's military put its rocket units on combat-ready status, threatening to strike the continental United States, Hawaii, and Guam, as well as South Korea. The North's Committee for the Peaceful Reunification of Korea hit South Korea's new president, Park Geun-hye. The statement accuses Park of slander and provocation. The committee says if she keeps to the road of confrontation, she will meet a miserable ruin. Last week, the U.S. and South Korean military signed a new pact providing for joint military response to provocative action by North Korea. North Korea says it's cutting a military hotline to South Korea, suspending all direct intergovernment and military contact. The Korean Central News Agency quotes a military official saying, from now, the North-South military communications will be cut off. Severing the military hotline could affect operations at the Seoul-funded Kaesong Industrial Complex in the north. The hotline was used to organize movement of people and vehicles. Several weeks ago, North Korea also cut a Red Cross hotline used for government-to-government communications in the absence of diplomatic relations. Well, let's now look at Rappler's Wrap for today. A list of the 10 most important events around the world you shouldn't miss. At number 3, Pope Francis will continue to stay at the Vatican guest house, quote, until further notice instead of moving into the official papal residence. Vatican spokesman Federico Lombardi says the new pope will remain in the 120-room guest house among other members of the clergy. Pope Francis has been taking his meals in the common dining room of the guest house and celebrating Mass with Vatican employees in its main chapel. At number 6, freak blizzards and freezing weather over the first few days of spring hit Europe and parts of the United States, triggering fatal cases of hypothermia, power outages, and transport chaos. In Poland, 5 people died from exposure as temperatures plunged to minus 24 degrees Celsius. Bad weather also kills at least 2 people on the British mainland, where media calls the unseasonably icy month miserable March. A huge snowstorm also wreaks havoc in the U.S., stretching from St. Louis, Missouri in the Midwest to Washington, D.C. on Monday, grounding hundreds of flights. And at number 10, a few weeks after allowing tourists in North Korea to use 3G connectivity to browse the internet on phones, the country once again revoked that privilege. Koryo Tours announces, quote, 3G access is no longer available for tourists to the DPRK. Tourists can still buy SIM cards to make international calls, but internet access will not be available. For the full top 10, visit Rappler.com's The Wrap. 6 weeks ago, the world's largest crocodile in captivity, named Lolong, was found dead inside its pen in a wildlife sanctuary in Agusan del Sur in the Philippines. The reason? Lolong died because of cruelty. Carlos Santamaria reports.
In September 2011, a 6.14-meter-long crocodile was caught in Agusan del Sur. Nicknamed Lolong, it was the world's largest crocodile in captivity. Thousands flocked to the small town of Bunawan to see Lolong trapped in a pen with a tiny pond. Protected areas and Wildlife Bureau officials warned the local government the conditions under which Lolong was being kept were downright cruel. A year and a half later, Lolong dies from multiple organ failure caused by the stress of his enclosure.
The enclosure was not big enough for him. The pond was not big enough for him to swim around. It was not deep enough.
Bunawan Mayor Edwin Elorde was told Lolong needed more space, but for 18 months he failed to build a bigger pen for the crocodile. Elorde also ignored his promise to set the reptile free.
So we still had that option open to eventually release Lolong back into the natural habitat, because there were reports that there was still a remaining area in Agusan Marsh that can be established as a sanctuary just for crocodiles. So
Lolong's necropsy results show the crocodile had lost most of its claws and upper teeth from scratching against the concrete floor of the pond that was too small for it to swim in. It also suffered muscular atrophy and was crushed by its own weight from spending too much time out of the water. The caretakers were emptying the pond, so tourists willing to pay extra would see Lolong out of the water. A crocodile expert says Lolong should never have been enclosed in a pen.
At present time, considering the number of these animals in the wild, they should not anymore be captured and removed from the natural habitat and placed in an enclosure. You will just be putting too much stress on these animals and unnecessarily shortening their life.
Republic Act 9147 says that wildlife should be managed by the PAWB, but the government agency lacks resources to make local officials comply with their instructions.
The DNR and all its offices have what we call allowed the local government units to do something along the line of taking care of wildlife, no? But I think there are no specific protocols in the case of specific unique creatures like Lolong. I think this is needed because an animal like Lolong should have been under the care of a relevant government agency, and that is the DNR.
Authorities say they have learned their lesson. They promise next time they will require strict enforcement of their guidelines so the next Lolong will live not just 50 but 100 years. Carlos Santamaria, Rappler, Manila.
Every story on Rappler has a mood meter which gives you 8 emotions to choose from. Click how you feel and your vote comes to the mood navigator in the middle of the front page, which crowdsources the mood of the day. It also gives you the top 10 stories that have gotten the most votes on their mood meter, the 10 stories that have contributed the most to the mood of the day. If you take a look today, 6 out of the 10 stories actually have to do with the upcoming May elections. You have 2 stories on Cheese, Heart to Mom. This is about Cheese's girlfriend, Heart Evangelista. Cheese, Escudero, the biggest loser in the latest SWS poll. You have a story on June Magsaysay. 2 stories on Risa Ontiveros. Risa Ontiveros' Senate win like RH bill passage, uphill but possible. And Ontiveros to Supreme Court, don't let families wait. Mitos Magsaysay, a critic of policies. And the stories that have, interestingly, the story that's gotten the most votes for today, combat-ready North Korea, a lot of attention on North Korea in the last 24 to 48 hours, threatens U.S. mainland and Hawaii. 49% amused, but even here, if you take a look, it reflects the green mood of the day, which is here. You have a 3% happy. Happy is the mood of the day. Today, most people are happy. That's Rappler's Newscast for today, Wednesday, March 27, 2013. Visit Rappler.com and watch our newscast Monday to Friday. Tell us how you feel on our mood meter and help us crowdsource the mood of the day. I'm Maria Ressa. As we say at Rappler, tomorrow begins today.